So sometimes when you consider about what is death, and what I mean by that is we go to sleep every night. We have dreams. Well, hopefully you have dreams. I have a very vivid dream world that's very enjoyable. I hope you all have an enjoyable dream world as well. I go to great places. It's 1/3 of my life, so I try to embrace my sleep cycle, my dreaming. I mean, ideally it'd be 1/3, 8 hours a day. Um, I usually get about 6, but regardless, that's like another realm we go to. And when you think about dying, because we're told we're all going to die, we don't really know for sure, but it seems that way. And so oftentimes I tell myself, I'm like, wow, as much as you're enjoying this life, at some point you're going to die. And then you're going to transcend to this other dimension. And then when you start to consider that, like, all right, well, there's another life for me. And, some of you are going to think heaven. Some of you are going to think that when you die, that's all there is. And I want to cover some of that. So as you know, I remember choosing my life at another dimension. But then I'm like, well, okay, what happens when I return back to that? And let's say I choose another life, so then I'm like, all right, well, you live again. And then, okay, what about if I stay there and say, no, I don't want to live again? So then I become this like eternal being. And to many people that sounds exciting, like, wow, I'm this eternal being. But when I think about it, I'm like, do you get to sleep as an eternal being? Because the best part about being alive, not the best part, but a great feature about being alive is that you get to go to sleep and you get to turn off for a while. You get to go away. So that's why life doesn't get too boring for me, because I'm awake 16 and then I get to go to sleep, relax, and journey into another dimension, which sometimes transcends time. And then when you wake back up, you're like, okay, I'm back on Earth. And it's always different. Like, you ever notice that every day when you wake up, the world's just a little bit different. Your physiology's changed depending on what you ate, whatever changes went through, because we really don't even know what happens when we sleep, but a whole bunch of repairs take place, upgrades take place, patch management takes place. So, you wake up the next day, it keeps life fresh. I have a great life. I have an enjoyable life, so I'm not looking forward to ever dying. At this stage, I'm thrilled about being alive. I want to live as long as I want to live. Now that's different. Some people say they want to live forever. I want to live as long as I want to live. And that's one of the things I'm trying to push when I talk about releasing the tech. Part of that is releasing the biotech. And releasing the biotech enables you to live forever or live as long as you want to live. And to get an idea what I mean, if you've ever read A Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein, Michael Valentine Smith, and as well as all the Martians, they have a capability, they call it discorporating. So if they want to just die, they could just die. And once they discorporate, they then kind of use the force to communicate with others and whatnot. So that's a nice feature. What was neat about Michael Valentine Smith was he knew how to modify all of the physiological functions of the body. So if he wanted to have huge muscles, he could then modify how the proteins were done. If he wanted to sit at the bottom of a pool indefinitely, he could modify the circulation of oxygen through his system. So I want those features, basically. Like, he knew how to do it mentally. He was a human being raised on Mars, so they had a different way of training you. He had basically control over the involuntary functions of his body. But back to our existence. So there's this part that I'm trying to get at. So you choose to live again. Okay, here we are. I'm living again. Do you live endless lives over and over again? Think of yourself as an eternal being. Obviously, your life is going to end at some point. But then doing this over and over again, where is that base world? I mean, obviously it's purgatory or this in-between world. But when does it ever end? Is this everlasting? And when we think everlasting, we think of everlasting on an earthly version of it. But think of eternally everlasting, where there See, like in our lives, no matter how long something lasts, we're going to die. So you never have to live through everything because you're going to die. What if you don't ever die? And I don't mean living forever in this body. And I say die, being an eternal being is exhausting. And I don't, but then you're like, well, okay, being an eternal being is exhausting. But then when you go to the opposite of it and thinking that when you die, that's it. You die. You don't have a soul. Your body just rots away, and you no longer exist. I find that one so hard. That's probably like the main reason. There's two reasons I don't roll with the atheists. One, they think there's no God. It's like, come on, man. I'm not religious, by the way, to any atheists out there, but I'm like, dude, somebody made all this. This isn't an accident. We are in a controlled world. And one of my other videos, I talk about there's a lot of stuff that came with the earth. So like mountains and the oceans came with the earth. Although I guess if you believed in evolution, you would think that all happened over time. But that's what they had to train you to believe in evolution. If you really go outside of the boundaries and you think that this realm is not even real, that we're not even on earth, we're in a plane of existence that's not even a plane. We're in a realm, right? So if you think we're in a realm, you would then be allowed to believe that some stuff came with it. Just like a video game. Like Super Mario Brothers, for an example. All those blocks with the question marks came with the game. Came with the world. Came with the Super Mario world. And all those dungeons you go in, those came with the world. Those drawbridges, like who built all that? Koopa? If you die and that's it, what the heck really was the point of life? I find it really hard for anybody to believe that, because if anybody thought that, that would mean that you don't have to worry about any kind of like judgment after your life. So then why would you even behave with societal rules? Why wouldn't you just go nuts? And I'm not saying that that's what I would do. So yeah, I just can't believe that that would be the end. But then I do ponder it, like what if I'm crazy? What if I didn't really remember what I thought I remembered? And what if when I die, that's the end of me? And I'm like, well, where does my soul go? Like, how could my soul how could that be the end of it? How could I just cease to exist? Because I so feel outside of my body. Like, I do have a body. I'm happy that I have a human body, but my soul is so outside of it. It's such a separate part of it, is what I mean. The things I remember being everlasting. Not everlasting, but at least before this. I'm here now in this body. I chose this life. And I'm here for a while. But then I'm going to transcend onto another place. And when I'm at that other place, if I keep going forever, being eternal is not as beautiful as it sounds. But then not existing is even worse. So you either have to always exist or you not exist. Or if you're eternal and cannot exist anymore, well then you wouldn't exist anymore. And that's sad too. But then outside of time, it's if we're eternal, that's oh man. Like, how long do you want to exist? And I don't ever want to not exist, but I don't want to feel like I have to exist forever. But I don't want to not exist. I don't want like my eternal being to not exist, but I don't want to forever exist. Like, you just want it to end at some point. So that's what I'm saying. I hope in the afterlife, if you choose not to come back as a human, I just need to be able to go to bed. That's all. What is the equivalent of going to sleep in the afterlife? If you don't have a body, can you imagine just being awake as a spirit forever? And again, if you're like, I don't believe that anyway, can you imagine not existing at some point when you die? Can you imagine dying and that being the end of it? I mean, if that's what you believe, how? I hope you're not doing a 9-to-5 job. I hope you're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I hope you're swimming to the ice wall and finding out what's in Antarctica. I hope you're living your life to the fullest. If you think this is it, like you have one life to live, I always hear, yeah, you got one life to live. I'm like, nah, you got so many, you have as many as you want. But if you think you only have one and you're just wasting time watching TV, you're doing it way wrong. So now, I still haven't got to the point I'm trying to get to. I think when I wake up to go to the bathroom at like 3 o'clock in the morning, that's when you get, at least when I get the most far out there thoughts of my existence and my mortality. So living forever is, I'm kind of recapping, is man, eternally, being an eternal soul is one thing. Returning over and over again to earth, imagine doing that. And then dying and that's it. That's like, So now, I can't think of it at this point. Maybe I need to record at 3 o'clock in the morning. There was this fourth scenario that was, it was like, bro,